Episode 124. In truth, if he hadn't exhausted his strength over the last 2 days, he could have used his swift movement technique to swagger right past those cultivators and leave them in the dust. But unfortunately, in his current state, he could only manage that technique a few more times. Even if he tried to run, he wouldn't get far. For now, he was safe inside the stone hall, but he was also trapped, with no way out.
This stone hall is built way too simply. We passed through the main gate, walked down a winding corridor, and ended up in this completely empty hall. The entire hall is completely empty. There's not a single place to hide. Judging by the way that group outside is moving, they're definitely heading for this stone hall. Hoping they won't come in is pure fantasy.
Actually, to say there was absolutely nowhere to go wasn't entirely true. Right before Han Li's eyes, in the very center of the hall, was a dark, yawning tunnel entrance, ringed by a low railing of jade. A set of stone steps descended directly from the entrance into the earth. A damp, hot wind blew ceaselessly from its depths, making it impossible to imagine where it truly led.
It doesn't take a genius to guess this place doesn't lead anywhere good. It's bound to be full of danger. That's why I've been hesitating to go down. But there's nowhere else to hide in this hall.
Cold sweat beaded on Han Li's forehead. And then, a chaotic clatter of footsteps echoed from the temple entrance.
It looks like those cultivators have already entered the stone hall. They'll be in this chamber in no time.
Seeing this, Han Li gave a bitter mental sigh. He gritted his teeth, then floated lightly over the railing and slipped into the tunnel. Once inside the tunnel, Han Li was met with pitch blackness. He reached into his storage pouch, fished out a moonlight stone, and the area around him was instantly illuminated. The passage wasn't large, built entirely from bluestone and just wide enough for a single person to squeeze through. Han Li hurried down the stairs, terrified of being caught from behind. After climbing several hundred steps, the narrow passage gradually widened, but the damp wind blowing against him grew even more scorching. In no time at all, Han Li was drenched in sweat, his clothes soaked through. The blue stone passageway finally came to an end. As he stepped out of the passage, a strange swamp world unfolded before his eyes. This subterranean world was only about 100 feet high, but it stretched for miles in every direction. As far as the eye could see, the landscape was a morass of black, bubbling mud. A peak of moisture, spontaneously generated above the swamp, connected with the fresh air from outside, creating a balanced state of convection. Tall mounds of black earth surrounded the swamp, while dozens of strange flowers and spirit herbs of various colors grew along its far edge. Among them were the very heaven and earth spirit herbs Han Li needed, and in no small quantity either. But none of it captured Han Li's attention like the small white jade pavilion in the center of the swamp. Suspended in the air within the pavilion was a massive golden chest, 12 feet long and 6 feet wide, its lid tightly shut. A faint golden light shimmered across its surface, marking it instantly as something extraordinary. Han Li gave it only a few glances before he immediately averted his gaze. It wasn't that Han Li was unmoved by the treasure in the golden chest, but a horde of killers was about to descend on his heels.
I need to find a hiding spot, and fast. That's what really matters. If I lose my life, what good is this treasure anyway?
Han Li's figure swayed a few times, and he had already darted behind a mound of earth some distance from the tunnel entrance. In one breath, he applied both his chi concealment and stealth arts. Then, he lay flat on the mound, completely motionless. Blended with the dark earth, Han Li was now one with his surroundings. From a distance, spotting him would be impossible. Han Li had barely finished his preparations when the elven maiden's figure appeared on the steps of the passage entrance. She appeared and gave the scene a cool, appraising glance. When her eyes fell upon the golden chest within the white jade pavilion, her previously composed expression finally shifted. The young woman descended the steps and took a delicate, captivating stance at the edge of the swamp. The other male and female disciples of the Crescent Moon sect, who had been following closely behind, immediately surged forward in a rush, forming a neat row behind her. Han Li watched this unfold, his heart skipping a beat. Just who is that girl leading them?
So this is where the black spirit python is hiding?
Ancestor, that giant serpent is hidden within the swamp. It has devoured over a dozen disciples from various sects who sought the treasure chest, earning itself a truly fearsome reputation. It's turned this place into a forbidden zone that no disciple from any sect dares to approach. However, this beast is indeed far stronger than an ordinary top-tier monster. Please be careful, Ancestor.
Do you think I can't even handle a single level 1 demon beast?
The girl's fair, delicate face darkened as she struck a comically pompous pose which caused the white-robed woman who had just spoken to blanch.
I wouldn't dare.
You may go. Everyone, proceed as planned. No matter how formidable this black-scaled python is, it will be no match for the yin-yang attraction technique. No matter how powerful it is, it's still just a tier 1 demon beast.
The young woman's words sent a jolt of energy through the disciples behind her. After giving her instructions to the disciples, the young woman turned her attention back to the swamp before her.
It looks like the thing is inside this chest. What a waste of time. The first few places were a complete bust. Nothing but junk.
The girl's voice was so low that none of the other disciples could hear a thing. They were all still buzzing with excitement for the battle to come. At the young woman's command, the disciples of the Concealing Moon sect immediately stood shoulder to shoulder with their cultivation partners and, with practiced ease, each extended a hand to clasp the other's. The overlapping palms immediately emitted a strange glow of blue and red, which then traveled up their arms and suffused the bodies of the disciples. The 6 pairs of Concealing Moon sect dual cultivation disciples formed a strange sight, with the men enveloped in a red glow and the women radiating blue light, creating an interwoven tapestry of crimson and azure. The remaining 2 female and 1 male disciple, having lost their Tao companions, could only take out a few magic tools from their persons and make some basic preparations. Han Li lay flat on the dirt mound. He hadn't heard the young woman's murmured words, but the female disciple's earlier address of Ancestor had reached his ears loud and clear. The shock of it nearly made him bite his own tongue.
A grandmaster of the Concealing Moon sect. I'm no longer a rookie fresh to the world of cultivation. I know exactly what that means. That's a core formation expert, on par with our own Ancestor Li. But isn't this a forbidden zone where only Foundation establishment cultivators and below can enter? How could such a powerful figure appear here?
Seeing that all her disciples were ready, the young girl gave a satisfied nod and took action. The young girl parted her lips and spat out her magic treasure, the vermilion bird ring. The moment it left her mouth, it flew over the swamp, spinning rapidly and swelling to the size of a house. Then, from below, the girl formed a hand seal and pointed. A beam of red light shot from her hand and struck the ring. In an instant, the ring's color shifted violently, transforming from pink into the blazing hue of flame. Within the ring's inner circle, sparks of fire began to appear, gathering in number and growing ever brighter. In no time at all, hundreds of fist-sized, superheated fireballs had formed within the great ring, causing the temperature of the underground world to spike sharply once more.
Han Li watched from the dirt mound, utterly dumbstruck. With that kind of spectacle and power, if that's not a magic treasure, I'll eat my hat. If she can command a magic treasure, then she's a core formation cultivator. There's no doubt about it. But how did she get into this forbidden zone? And her magic power is only at the peak of chi condensation.
These questions tumbled through Han Li's mind again and again, but he still couldn't find any answers. Before the young woman could take her next step, the swamp below began to stir. From a central point in the swamp, the surrounding muck began to churn. The disturbance spread, roiling higher and higher, until it surged up into a massive, towering mound. The sheer scale of it was staggering. Seeing this, a flicker of confusion passed across the young woman's face.
In my memory, the black-scaled python never had such an imposing aura.
However, seeing the demon beast about to reveal itself, the young woman dared not hesitate. She formed a hand seal, and the massive vermilion bird ring connected to it earlier began to spin in mid-air. Within it, the hundreds of crimson spheres instantly transformed into a vast, blazing sea of fire, merging into one. The girl's hand seals suddenly froze. In an instant, the ring's rotation ground to a halt. The sea of fire within it abruptly coalesced into a thick, whirling pillar of flame which shot down with ferocious momentum, spearing directly toward the high bulge in the swamp. But before the fiery pillar could reach the swamp, a thick, ink-black water jet, as wide as a bull's mouth, erupted from the muddy mound with a whoosh, meeting the oncoming flames head-on. Instantly, a fierce sizzling erupted between them. Great plumes of steam billowed out in thick sheets, blanketing the area in a dense, swirling fog. Everything blurred in an instant.
That's a black-scale python.
The girl's initial look of confusion vanished, replaced by a face of stark alarm the moment she saw that pitch-black water column. As if in response to the girl's words, a bizarre, ear-piercing shriek tore through the air from the white mist. Then, with a violent whoosh, a scorching wind erupted out of nowhere, sweeping the nearby vapor away and revealing the true form of the monstrous beast. A black, serpentine monstrosity, its body covered in massive scales, appeared before the group. This serpent-like beast was not large, only about 30 or 40 feet long, yet its entire body was shrouded in a faint, dark mist, giving it an utterly sinister and unnatural aura. From its head to its tail, it looked no different from an ordinary black python. Of course, its massive, jet-black scales were a glaring exception.
It's an ink flood dragon.
When the girl got a clear look at the beast's face, her expression became a mix of worry and delight. The dozen or so disciples standing behind her, however, were completely baffled. Isn't that a black-scaled python? How did it become some kind of ink flood dragon? The young woman had no time to explain to the disciples, for the demonic beast floating several zhang above the ground had already identified the primary culprit who had disturbed its rest.
The green eyes on either side of its head flashed with malice. It opened its maw, and another jet of black water shot straight toward the concealing moon-sect disciples.
You beast, you're asking for death.
The young woman knew full well how dangerous the ink flood dragon was. Even though this demonic beast seemed quite young, she dared not take it lightly for a moment. She urgently pointed at the vermilion bird ring in the air. Instantly, the ring blazed with crimson light, flashing to position itself before the young woman. A rapid volley of fireballs shot from its center, intercepting the stream of black water mid-flight.
Gather and bind restraining ropes.
The girl clasped her hands into a full moon shape and, with a grave expression, uttered the 5-word incantation from her lips.